grieve. It's part of everybody's life, right? All of us will encounter some grief, some sadness at a certain point. And in another video I talked about that you can do it on your own pace, the grief, feeling the sadness and going through it. Because it's what you can do at that moment in those circumstances, and that is just fine. But what can happen if you never go to that grief and don't give it attention? That it will get really stuck in your body. So what I believe is that emotion is energy. And whenever there's this emotion and we don't let it flow through us, we don't just let it go, we are with it and let it go, we are aware of it and let it go. By, for example, crying. Tears are also healing waters. And crying, that we go, oh, I feel it and I let it flow through me. If we don't do that, it gets stuck somewhere, and it needs to go somewhere, and it's not able to go through you back into the energy around you or into the ground. So it gets stuck somewhere until you are ready to connect with it. And what can happen that it accumulates more grief and more situations that are the same. And maybe even you already have that spot where emotion and grief is located. The emotion that you couldn't let go of then. So it accumulates until maybe you feel that it's very uncomfortable in a certain spot. Maybe your heart, maybe your throat, maybe your belly, maybe somewhere else. For everybody it's different. And it becomes really uncomfortable, maybe painful. Maybe you feel there's a knot or a huge thing filled with air, or you feel like someone is stabbing you in your heart. Of course, it can also be something else. Always go to your GP if you're worried. But it can also be emotion. And what can happen is that you start to become very fearful of that grief, or of new grief coming in, or you can get really connected with old grief and old situations, right? Old situations, and you're reliving them, rethinking them, and also you're afraid of, oh, maybe someone will die, or maybe the person will leave me, and then it becomes a thing, and you're just putting your attention towards the grief, but not the grief inside that wants to be let go of, but new things, situations you might be afraid will give you more grief. And grief is a very difficult one, sadness as well, because often we think we don't want to go there because it's painful. And often we are also taught in our youth that don't cry, or whenever you're sad, your mother or father will give you some candy. And that's from the good intention, because we all have the idea grief is really difficult and you want to avoid that. And then what happens that if there are situations where there is grief involved, or there might be grief involved, it triggers you. So you get another invitation to connect and give attention to the grief. And then what can happen is you get really weird fears that are not connected to the grief. But there's so much fear in you that suddenly you're afraid of going outside. Maybe you're afraid of picking up the phone. Maybe you're afraid of going to sleep. Maybe you're afraid of driving a car. Maybe you're afraid of people in your environment dying, or people saying goodbye. So it just accumulates until the moment is there that you feel, okay, it's enough. You can break down. You can have something like stress, or you get panic attacks. And those are all signals like, hey, something inside of you, in this case it can be grief and sadness, needs attention. It's time to let it go. So yes, you can have your own pace. It's what you can do at that moment. And if you feel, oh, I'm really scared, or oh, I really get so many signals from my body. I'm so tired, because it takes a lot of energy to keep it there and to keep it hidden. And then it's time to get some help. You know, again, what helps you to grieve? What helps you to get to your connection, the connection to your heart, to your intuition, to your soul? What helps you to feel? And what helps you to feel safe? What people in your surrounding feel safe? Or maybe you want to go to a therapist or a psychologist or a healer, a coach again. Help yourself. Don't just keep on walking until your physical problems are really awful or you get panic attacks every day. Get help. You're worth it. Sending you lots of love.